I'm Evan Gudmestead, an instructor of application and web development at Rankin Technical College, and today I'm going to continue learning and going through some documentation for ASP.NET Core Blazor apps. And so here on the Microsoft website, I'm just kind of going through all these different .NET tutorials, piece at a time, and I've kind of made it through into the Blazor apps. And so there's kind of a rabbit hole you go down in these documentations when you kind of start in one place when you're learning Blazor. I found these useful tutorials off to the side after going through all this, and here is where I'm building a Blazor web app with a database. So this is the tutorial that I'm going to work my way through, and I'm just gonna change it to be, instead of a movie database, I'll just make pizza database, and as if we're selling pizzas or whatever. And so I'm going to stick this on my computer inside of a new project. So I'm using Visual Studio Community. Start fresh in this chapter 7 folder that's empty. I like to check this box, place the solution and the project in the same directory. And I'll call the project Blazor Web App Pizzas. Okay, .NET 9 is the latest. No authentication. HTTPS is selected. Interactive render mode server. I spent a lot of time battling this checkbox. If you don't have that checked, gave me some troubleshooting things learned along the way, but let's mark that as server. Per page and per component. Include sample pages as selected, not selected, and create. First thing we do is run the app. Just run the template. And we got the built-in Blazor components. Okay, stop it from running. So click stop, or just shut it down this way. Close. Okay, launch settings inside the properties. www-root is our static files. So some different environments here if you're working with HTTP or HTTPS. wroot is our static files. We got components folder with our layout pages, which are .razor file extensions. We got our components. And so these are actually pages that you hit versus just layout files. So we got main layout, and then we got a CSS file associated with that. Just kind of reviewing these files that come with the template. We got an imports.razor that are available. All these imports should be available in our components. Right, so all these, we don't have to have that in every component. If you put it in here, app.razor is the launching component where we start the application. Routes.razor is for routing our different components. The routes component sets up the routing for the app. So the front end, obviously Blazor is all about front end. It's a front end framework, so it's going to send in the front end routes, not any like back end API routes. App settings JSON. We're going to have our connection string in here. Program CS. Can create the web application, and middleware, which is referred to as the request processing pipeline of the application. Okay, and then we can go through each one of these method calls and kind of break it down. What it does is really what the tutorial is doing. And I did that the other day. I'm kind of retracing my steps here a little bit. So on to the part 2, adding a scaffold and a model. All right, let's collapse that, close all. And we're going to add a folder called models. And we're going to add a model class called pizza. And ID is the primary key. Sure, a pizza name, pizza description, we'll do a price. We can make these nullable. And we have these attributes that we can set on the price that kind of set up data types in the database, and bringing those in, they'll add a using data annotations up top. So we can use these attributes and say, hey, this price can have 18 digits and 2 of them can be decimals, and it is a currency. These are referred to as attribute classes. And the first time I did this, I was very surprised at how much can be done with this scaffolding. Scaffolding is code generation from this point. So all we had to do was generate a class, and then we scaffold the model, and there's a whole lot of code generation. I've used scaffolding many times in the past, but boy, does this do a lot. So this will generate some views and some database code, all based on that model. So inside of pages, which is components, pages, we're going to right click pages, click on add new scaffolded item, and under Blazor there's a Razor component. Razor components using Entity Framework CRUD. So Entity Framework is the framework inside of .NET Core that can help you do code first. It's called Code First Entity Framework, but basically you write your C# code first, and it'll help you generate a database based on the C# code. So the template we're using is CRUD. The model, of course, is our pizza. We need to generate a DB context class. So it'll generate this. The context class is going to be where we put our seed data and help us connect to the database. And it is SQL Server. Click Add. It'll put generate a whole bunch of code for us. See if I can get through this whole tutorial maybe in an hour, hour and a half. Okay, we got a create.razor. So here's our pizza pages: create, delete, details, edit, and index. So all of these components inside of pizza pages. Inside of my app settings, it made a connection string. So we have this new connection string, and I'm going to name my database something different. I'm going to delete all that to the semicolon. My database will be called Blazor Pizzas DB. So there's our connection string, and then we use a little dependency injection here on line 7 to make that context file available in our controllers or our methods. So here it reads our connection string called Blazor Web App Pizzas Context right here. So those names match. And like I said, makes that context file available in our methods. So we'll see that here in a little bit. And we get CRUD operations again to kind of dive into this a little bit. Pizzas create is our path there. Pizzas delete, details, pizzas edit, and just reading the pizzas. Also, there's this quick grid class that's used to render some HTML. And here on line 10, it enables us to use that. Okay, so now we got to actually create the database because the database is not created yet. So I'm going to add operation initial. And it'll create one table called pizza update-database. And if you go to view SQL Server Object Explorer, right, you can look at your databases. And I've got this one from before, but this is the one I just created with my pizza table and nothing in it right now. So if I run it at this point, and manually type in /movies, which is my movies list. No, of course it's pizzas. We don't have any pizzas yet, but if you go create new, pepperoni, we have one pepperoni pizza in our database. Okay, that kind of gets us to part 3, learn about Razor components. So the ironic thing here is that my class is going through an MVC class, and we learn about Razor views. Razor views different than Razor components. Razor views are in the MVC MVC design pattern, and it's a CSHTML. versus Razor components, which is a Blazor .razor file, .razor. So similar but yet a little different. .razors over here versus .cshtml over there. But the Razor syntax, I think, is maybe cross both of them, because here you see the at code, and so anytime you see that at symbol, we can write a little code block. Okay, Razor components. Blazor apps are based on Razor components, often referred to as just components. A component is an element of a UI page. Components are C# classes built in to C# .NET assemblies. Razor refers to how components are usually written in the form of a Razor markup page. .razor file extension for client-side UI logic and composition. Razor is a syntax. Razor is a syntax for combining HTML with your C#. So very similar to what we're doing over there in the MVC world, learning Razor syntax. So you might hear them called Blazor components, you might hear them called Razor components, or just components, kind of interchangeable terms there. All right, so looking at one of these, we got the .razor file extension. Next, Razor markup specifies how the HTML is rendered. Which includes ordinary HTML elements. Okay, let me back up here. The anatomy of a Razor component has a pattern. At the top of the component, various Razor directives specify how the component markup is compiled or how it functions. So I guess that's all this. Razor directives. How it is compiled or how it functions. So here you can see we're bringing in a navigation manager and we are bringing in a context. So we're injecting navigation, basically this class and this class that is a context. This context allows us to work with Entity Framework to save changes. Let me give myself some more real estate here. A lot of this tutorial is just inspecting the code that was generated. Next, Razor markup specifies how HTML is rendered, so we're kind of like getting into here. This is considered Razor markup. Obviously, it's a combination of HTML and these Razor tags, because obviously page title is different than just the HTML title. Finally, at the end, we got at code. Contains C# to define members, including parameters and event handlers. Okay. So kind of here, it's just looking at this welcome. We got the Blazor directive up top. A Blazor directive is a reserved keyword prefixed with the @ symbol that appears in Blazor markup that changes the way the component markup is compiled or functions. The page directive specifies the route template for the component. This component is reached by the relative URL/welcome. By convention, most of a component directives are placed at the top. Component directives. Page titles built into the framework. Okay, we're displaying the welcome message that was defined in the code block. There's our variable, there's our variable. Okay, the nav menu component for navigation, of course. If I close all of this, there's nav menu. This is our little sidebar, is the way this boils down to, I believe. Here's our links on the sidebar. The nav menu component implements a sidebar navigation using nav link components, which render navigation links to other render components. A nav link behaves like an anchor tag, except it toggles active CSS class based on whether its href attribute matches the current URL. This active class helps a user understand which page they're on. Nav link match all. Right here. Assigned to the match parameter configures the component to display an active class when it matches the entire URL. So we got this going on with a flex column. We got a little flex box going on here. Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward, but it's going to apply the active class here, so you can tell what page you're on using this match. It's a pretty simple way to implement that. I like that. The navlink component built into the Blazor framework for any Blazor app to use, while the nav menu component is only a part of Blazor project templates. Nav menu. Okay, so we don't use nav menu, but we do have nav link. Nav link component built into the Blazor framework for any Blazor app, while the nav menu component is only part of Blazor project templates. Nav menu. I don't think that's in here. Search the entire solution. Okay, it was in a... Okay, nav menu is in the parent. That's what it is. So here, nav menu. Oh gosh, that was the name of the file. Okay. So here it loads a component, and inside there we have nav links. So here's our sidebar. That is a nav menu. Got it. Notice in the nav menu, the first div element, the brand link text. Okay, so here, go inside here. The first div change the okay, this allows the users to reach the index page immediately after the div for the weather component. Add the following. So let's see. Counter. There's our weather component. There's a div. And obviously I can just bring that in and make some changes. This is pizzas. I just added a little nav link there. So we changed the brand and we added a link. Okay, hold tight. Yeah, I'm going to help a student with something. How you doing, sir?
Pretty good.
What's going on?
Let me stream. I think. So I just finished watching your video, like the Blazor, and I understand it, but I'll show you my thing. There's a point where I'm trying to preview the links for these links, but I'm not getting anything in return. Like nothing. The response isn't showing. Alright, let me close this. I know that's wrong.
Which video did you watch here? I mean, you got.
Let me show you.
Yeah.
Let me show you.
Yeah.
It's this one. The one you're telling me I should watch for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's see. Is it booted up? Is that back end booted up?
Yeah. And this is the error I got.
Okay. So we're not going to be able to show a front end until we can test it in the back end. So what you told me is you can't test it in the back end. So let's close that down.
Yeah. Okay.
And go ahead and click on play on the back end.
For this?
Yep.
Okay.
And then let me see your endpoints.
Okay.
Okay, so your pathing should include a /packs.
Right here.
Yeah, you're adding a no, undo that for me. But what I'm saying is if you go to your main HTTP.
Yeah. Oh, this should be /packs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so try that.
Is that because of this? I think every time I have to like close this down.
No, that should be running.
Okay.
Go back to your endpoints for me. So here, if I'm let's see, hitting your route, it says you're hitting your context, include the cache card to list, and then there's another one where you're getting by ID. Let's see, in returning group. Go back to your main HTTP for me. And show me your the little command line window that booted up.
Oh, this.
Yeah. Now that didn't boot up. Hold on. It's crashing.
Oh.
It's giving you an
okay.
error. That's why it's... Go ahead and close it down and boot it back up for me.
Okay. Sorry, machine. Should I close the browser down?
Yeah.
Too?
Yeah.
Okay. And then.
No, you got to start it up with the play button.
Oh, okay.
And then let's just look at that window that it spits up, because I think it gives you an error right away.
Okay.
Okay, no error now. Hold on.
Yeah, I get this. I've gotten this before.
Okay.
But
Now let's go back. No.
Don't try this yet? Okay.
Go back to your HTTP and send that request. Local 5075/packs. Okay, now go back to the window. Okay, port is 5075. That's what I was listening. Okay, you're gonna have to like simplify that method to just hit the endpoint and get back some basic data. So back in your Pokemon, yeah, go to your endpoints and
Okay.
on line 14, after the arrow,
Yeah.
just I want to see if we can hit the endpoint. So go ahead and cut everything to the right. Just highlight everything to the end of.
Oh, just highlight.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, just cut that so it's on the clipboard.
Oh, cut it. Oh, okay.
Cut it, and then just put a string there, like that says "Hello World." Yeah. Okay, so I want to see if we can hit that endpoint. Probably get rid of that extra parenthesis. No, that's right. Okay. No, that's good. Okay. And you can get rid of the word async right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now save that. And now go back to your.
Back to this.
Yep. Send the request.
Okay.
Reboot it. Close it and reboot it.
Okay. Close the browser again.
Yeah, that shouldn't matter too much. All right, take off the /packs for me now and just do that. Yeah. You should at least get a hello world back there. Spinning my wheels a little bit. I'm not seeing it right now. It doesn't. I don't see it. Take your endpoints back. Control Z those changes on your endpoints. Yeah. Let me sit down at your computer tomorrow. And see if I can find it. I'm sorry, I'm just not seeing it right now.
No, that's fine. I mean, I'll look some more into it today and see if
go back to your. Oh man. Yeah. Do I make my repo available?
For the video.
I bet you if you look at my repo.
I just go to it. Okay.
Yeah, just go to it. Hold on, no, go back to the video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go to the backend repo. That'll help you out, okay?
Okay.
And we'll look at that tomorrow a little bit closer.
All right, thank you.
Okay, later. Bye.
Okay.
Okay, back here. See where I left off. We now have our pizzas, which brings us here. Okay, so we're inspecting main layout, which has inherits from this layout component base. Base class for components that represent a layout. The app's components that use the layout are rendered where the app body appears in the markup. The app's components that use the layout are rendered in here. Yeah, pretty standard to just kind of define all these external divs and then just have the content inside of this app body. The nav menu is rendered on the sidebar. The main has an about tag. An article has the body. And the error UI where a notice about an unhandled error is displayed. The default layout is specified in the routes component. Hey, Dominic. Hey, I cannot hear you.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, I was saying I was having an issue with trying to lowercase in like view. I was able to lowercase like home and then also like the title of my anime, but I can't really lowercase view for whatever reason. I'm just screen share.
Sure. Okay, let me go full screen. Okay. Go ahead and show me the problem.
I'm trying to like lowercase view, but like it's not really locating it out for whatever
Okay.
reason.
And what code are you doing to do that?
Over in my program.cs and trying to attempt to do it at home control as well.
Okay. Um, Show me your program CS for me. Okay. Yeah, so here's the code chunk that you're looking for. You got your textbook?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Page 171. Now, you have to write that in your program CS, lowercasing your URLs and appending trailing slashes. Okay, so you can do builder services, add routing. I believe you do it, yeah, after that line.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Talk to you later.
Mhm.
Okay, a little ping pong there. Back to the tutorial. The default layout main layout component is specified in the routes component. So here's our main layout. Individual components are free to set their own non-default layout, and a layout can be applied to a whole folder via an imports Blazor file in the same folder. These features are covered in detail in the Blazor documentation. Okay. Now it's looking at the CRUD components. Open the index, examine the directives at the top of the file. The using directive appears to access the following API: Entity Framework, Quick Grid, Models, Data, or Data folder, which is where our context is. The database context factory is injected into the component using the inject directive. The factory approach requires that a database context be disposed. So the component implements disposable interface. With the implements directive. Now I don't see where it talks about implementing that interface. Oh, there it is, right here. Okay, very simply a page title and each one. Here's our link to create new. The quick grid component displays pizza entities. The provider is a set of pizzas obtained from the context right there. For each pizza, the component displays the information, property column, heading, and then here's the data. No. These are your links. This must be the data. Oh, here in the code, we use this DB factory and initialize a context file. There we go. So on initialized, when the component is initialized, we connect to our database here, and then we have this context to connect to our pizza table right here. Notice how the context parameter specifies a parameter named pizza. Right here. The @ symbol with parentheses is called an explicit razor expression. So I've seen this, yeah, an inline expression. So we got a little string interpolation here. A little query string where we can edit and send an ID variable in a query string. Right, so then I'm guessing if I were to go to the edit, we could read the ID. here's our supply parameter from ID query. So this will read the ID from the URL when we're editing a pizza, and then we can hit the database to read that, whoops. To read the ID, get the pizza, populate the pizza from the database, and then there we go. Fill in that property, and then we can do an edit operation down here when you click the button to update the pizza. Just jumping ahead. The column names are taken from the properties, so the release date doesn't have a space. So if I were to go back to the index, okay, the details component open the details component, the page directive at the top indicates the relative URL. We got the same dependency injection for the database context. And entity framework and the models. Of course, navigation manager. Now pizza, there's a loading screen, so as pizza is populating, if pizza is null, show a loading screen, otherwise, so a slow connection, right? And then otherwise show a definition list with definition terms, definition data. So just another list tag. Okay, down to the code block. Get the ID. Yeah, it's the same thing as the edit, but we're getting the ID from the query string. And then reading the pizza out of the database on initialized async. So as the component is initializing, we do that. Supply parameter from query. So it says on initialized async is the first lifecycle method that we've seen. This method is executed when the component loads. First or default async, and right there, it's called on the database. And if it's null, goes to a not found endpoint. There isn't an actual not found endpoint in the app. When adopting server-side rendering, Blazor doesn't have a mechanism to return 404 status code. As a temporary workaround, a 404 is generated by navigating to a non-existent endpoint. The scaffolded code is further implementation of a suitable result for not finding an entity. So it's kind of interesting. So if I were to go here, pizzas, details, now we're to send in 5, just says /not found. So basically you can make your own component to be not found instead of getting this. Okay, the create component. Open the create component. Built-in component called edit form. And on valid submit, we click add pizza. Add pizzas down here. Which renders a form for user input and includes validation features. So edit form should have some built-in validation. Validation summary, this is where our list of validation errors will pop up. The model parameter is assign the model, in this case a movie, or our case a pizza. By convention, every form should assign a form name to prevent form collisions when multiple forms are on a page. The enhance flag activates a Blazor feature for server-side rendering that submits the form without performing a full page reload. That's cool. The data annotations validator adds data annotations validation support. Okay, so we'll probably go back into our model and add some attributes of validation. It says covered later in the tutorial, validation summary. Displays a list of validation messages and individual messages. So you get a summary at the top and individual validation messages for the pizza name. Okay, down to the add movie method, add pizza method. You click the button, submit the form. Now it says adds the if the form passes validation. So this is only going to happen if the data is valid. Test that out. You just go here, here, here. And right now, the only required field is it's not happy that price is not a it's a string and not the correct data type. And it's interesting that you get this ugly error message out of the box, but I'm sure we'll fix that. Save changes. So entity framework in action here. Delete component. Going to be the same thing, getting the ID from the query string. When you're initializing, read the pizza, populate the pizza on the page. Click the delete pizza button and remove the pizza. The exclamation point on the pizza is the null forgiving operator, which suppresses nullable warnings. So if you were to get rid of that, we get this fact that pizza could be nullable. It's just a warning. So that suppresses that warning. Okay, kind of already looked at edit. Now, similar to what we did in the MVC world, we took that ID and we need to store it somewhere so that you don't lose the ID out of the database. And so here we show all these other fields, but we need to store that ID somewhere. Otherwise, it gets lost going back and forth between client and server. Okay. Now this is a little different. Puts our entity state into a modified state. Which signifies that the entity is tracked, exists in the database, and that some or all of its property values are modified. If there's a concurrency exception and the movie entity no longer exists at the time the changes are saved, the component redirects to a not found. So in other words, if someone else deleted the pizza while you're trying to edit it, it would catch a concurrency exception because the ID no longer exists and navigate you to not found, which is a 404. Again, we could implement that not found. Additional guidance on handling concurrency with EF Core and Blazor apps is provided by the Blazor documentation. Okay, that was a lot of inspection of code, but it was somewhat helpful. Almost done with that on this page. Learning about Razor components. We're in a heading, mitigate over-posting attacks. Statically rendered server-side forms, such as those that can create and edit components, can be vulnerable to overposting, known as mass assignment attack. Overposting attack occurs when malicious users issue post to the server that processes data for the properties that aren't part of the rendered form, and the developer does not wish to allow them to modify. The term overposting literally means the malicious user has overposted with the form. In the example of create and edit components, the pizza model doesn't include restricted properties for create and update operations, so overposting isn't a concern. However, it's important to keep overposting in mind when working with SSR-based Blazor forms, where you create and modify in the future. To mitigate overposting, we recommend a separate view model, DTO, for the form in a database with create and update operations. When the form is submitted, only properties with the view model are used by the component in C# code to modify the database. Any extra data included by malicious user is discarded, so the malicious user is prevented from conducting an overposting. Okay, next steps, working with the database. Okay, kind of thought maybe I can get get a little further within an hour, but didn't quite make it, but we made some progress. I'm gonna kind of stop here and should be able to finish up this tutorial later this afternoon. So we made it through overview 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, we're not through 5. We finished 4 and we got 5 more to go. All right, we'll stop there.